Frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public, movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for.
We don't have it. They don't have it. The question is, who has it? Who's operating these vehicles?
The information is very compelling. It's real.
Yeah. Okay, it's real. Are they from another planet?
If it's not ours and it's not theirs, well, then it's someone or something else.
I can't wait for this report to come out.
There is no longer any doubt unidentified flying objects are real. This one was seen by now retired Navy pilot Alex Dietrich in her F-18 off the coast of California.
UFO sightings in New York have nearly doubled since the pandemic began, and we are getting new video from the Navy showing pyramid-shaped objects.
Suddenly, this person stood in front of me, and when I first saw him, I thought, wow, it's Jesus Christ. This person looked just like the way artists have traditionally painted Jesus Christ to look. He had long golden hair that was resting on his shoulders, and he was wearing a long white robe. This spirit guide that appeared to me then communicated to me using telepathy. I could see that his mouth was not moving, but in my own mind I could clearly hear. He told me that he was not Jesus Christ, that he was the master Joel Kuhl. Now, I was familiar with that name Joel Kuhl. The Alice Bailey books clearly describe that on planet Earth there are 49 of these ascended masters. These are God's representatives on planet Earth. They are human beings that have highly evolved themselves through strenuous practice of yoga and transcendental meditation and other occult techniques, and that they have now become immortal in their flesh and blood bodies. New Age teaches that they live as recluses, usually in the Himalayan mountains, but in other reclusive parts of planet Earth. New Age teaches that Jesus Christ is one of these 49 ascended masters, and that this Joel Kuhl is also one of these ascended masters, and that he has mystical powers. I became a disciple of this spirit guide.
Lou Elizondo, former intelligence officer with Department of Defense, said that one of his higher-ups told him to stop investigating this topic because they already knew what it was.
This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? And he says, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret sap, and they were telling me to stop. And I said, okay, sir, so it's ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this? And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic?
Correct.
Roger Morneau, later in his life in the early 90s, shared his testimony of how he was involved in a secret society of demon worshippers, and he said that a satanic high priest told him that the Grand Master, or Satan, had a deception plan for humanity, that demonic spirits would pose as visitors from far distant galaxies. He also said that it would be during a time of great calamity on the Earth, and when New Age beliefs were running rampant.
Roger, when I was a teenager back in the 1970s, I remember a song that came out talking about the age of Aquarius. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've seen the development of the New Age. And I wondered if back when you were involved in spirit worship, if they talked about New Age at all.
Oh yes, it was a big thing that was coming up. One of the major deceptions of the last days. And the priest told us, we talked quite a while. And then he said, could I have a little bit more? Your time I want to do something very fascinating. He says the grand plane, the master's grand plane, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So he continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grand plan is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. And he went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences. Are you familiar with out-of-body experiences?
I've read about them.
In other words, so there's some persons are supposed to be able to, they believe in their immortal soul.
Astral projection.
Yes, right. Goes into different parts of the world and sees things and come back, and then they write all about it.
I've heard of that.
So, due to the fact that the millions of the earth people believe in people having an immortal soul, it has to be readily accepted when the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people of the land, you see.
Now, what is a trance medium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah.
Okay.
Shirley MacLaine's experience of getting involved with Spiritism and with the supposed inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies, I taped the whole thing in 3 hours.
And you were hearing the fulfillment of what this high priest had said 45 years ago.
The priest says that the super deception is brought about in only one way: through the deceptive belief that man has an immortal soul that lives on after death. And he said that constitutes idolatry through necromancy. So he says there are hundreds of millions of Christians that are practicing idolatry. What do you think? They're glorifying God.
Visiting with them is almost like a near-death experience. But the psychic shock is coming back and comparing what I saw with them and what I have to see here every day. I've never spoken at a conference in the last 10, 15 years where there wasn't at least one or two of them in the audience. They're in our midst and they are family. Now I get into an altered state in the middle of the night. I've been doing a lot of remote viewing and I go out. But sometimes when I'm in that altered state, they come in. They pour information into my head.
Information about what?
Everything. Life, death, infinity.
During the course of my experience with extraterrestrial reality, when I was very young, one of the first things that they had to make sure I understood was that we are an eternal soul.
How do you read?
Dr. Edgar Mitchell was the sixth man to walk on the moon.
Okay, Ed, relative to the sensor.
Along with Bob Dean, Clifford Stone, and others, he claimed that the U.S. government had been covering up the existence of UFOs. He also believed that science could explain human consciousness and the existence of the afterlife.
But it turns out that if we use quantum mechanics to start to understand some of these parapsychological type issues, we make great progress using the tools of science, but approaching the concepts of mysticism.
The spirit, claiming to be Eric, explains the afterlife using scientific concepts.
And he says the soul is made of neutrinos. So those are tiny little particles that were discovered because they were able to pass through lead onto some sort of measuring device. When you die, those particles turn into a waveform, and those waves are carriers of information.
My children, I am the door of heaven and the help on earth. Each of my statues is a sign of a presence of mine and reminds you of your Heavenly Mother. I am Mary, the Queen of Heaven and the Queen of Angels.
The Roman Catholic Church adopted its own ascended masters, such as saints and the Virgin Mary, who is worshipped as a co-redeemer of mankind. In the 20th century alone, more than 400 apparitions claiming to be Mary were reported worldwide.